Hey everyone, hope you're having a fantastic day. I know I am because I'm on the beach. I'm here at Daytona Beach, Florida. It is absolutely amazing. We are here down for Sick Week, getting ready to start that. But being on this iconic land got me really thinking about what all went down here, the racing that happened, and what made Daytona so special. And then it brought me around to the question that I get asked most often at drag and drive events is, which drag and drive event is the best? And I think the answer is going to surprise you a little bit. It was a journey and a half getting here, but I am so happy. The Lord always provides, and He got me down here when I needed to be here. So we're good, and we're about to start Sick Week. Now, looking back over this past year, why I get asked the question of which drag and drive event is my favorite is because I've been to a lot of them. I was privileged to be able to go to Sick Week last year, Midwest Drags, hit Rocky Mountain Race Week 1.0, 2.0, and Drag Week all in the same year. And we're planning on doing more this year. But because I've been to all these, I get asked this, which one is best? And I think we need to kind of break it down into some different categories as to what makes one better than the other. Because they're all fantastic events, and I would highly recommend going to any of them. But I think it depends on what you're looking for as to what may be the best for you, rather than necessarily my favorite. I will tell you at the end what my favorite is. We're going to kind of go through and see the different events and kind of talk about them. We are going to lump all the regional events kind of into their own category, even though they do have a lot of differences between those events. We do want to kind of put those together. It'll make it a little bit easier for the format of the video, so you guys kind of understand that. And because we are down here for Sick Week, we're going to start off with Sick Week. We're going to look at some of the good things about Sick Week. One, it's in February, and it's in Florida. Enough said. It's fantastic. We're going to come down, escape the cold, and everybody is able to come down because there's no other racing going on. Therefore, it brings in a lot of people from other races. We see that the different races are kind of regionalized, and that's another point that we're going to talk on here in just a second, but they kind of have their own crowds at each race. However, at Sick Week, we get a mix of pretty much everybody. So if you're coming to spectate, Sick Week is a great option because you're going to be able to come and see a lot of the cars that might be at all these different events spread across the country that you wouldn't get to see, or you have to go to multiple events to see all at once. So Sick Week is very good in that sense. However, Sick Week is a long drive to get down to Florida. It's in an off season where you're still working on your car, possibly if you are racing. It doesn't really give you a downtime to get your car put back together. It's one of those events that just started last year, so we're coming into the second year. It'll be interesting to see how it unfolds, how Tom and his team deal with going into their second year and growing it and making it even better. The first year was absolutely amazing, had so much fun at it. It'll be interesting to see how they top it this year or just stay on par, and that we just have a good week with all of the drivers and enjoy ourselves in Florida on a vacation. That's what they tend to talk about, it being a vacation. The next one that we hit was Midwest Drags. Now, Midwest Drags is fairly different from the other ones in a lot of different regards. It's a good event. It has some different rules that kind of help flow things along that the drivers may like. From a photographer's standpoint, we'll look at that as well. Some of the differences that it provides. See, at Sick Week and at Drag Week and all that, you have class calls. It's going to tell when the cars come up. For the photographers, it makes it a little bit easier because we know when the cars that we need to shoot for are going to be there in time, so we can plan around that, around the schedule. Whereas Midwest Drags does not have that. So on the photography side, it makes it a little more difficult. However, for somebody that's just trying to be in the event, it's a lot easier because you can go up and make those passes whenever you want to, and you have to make 2 passes a day at Midwest Drags rather than 1 at all the other drag and drive events. However, Midwest Drags is only a 4-day event compared to the others being 5 days. So that's something to take in consideration whenever you're choosing an event. Do you prefer having an extra drive day and think that that is more of a challenge, or do you think having an extra pass every day is more of a challenge? I've heard both ways. I'm not sure necessarily which way I lean on that, but you guys can be the judge for that as to which way you like that type of thing. Another thing about Midwest Drags that does set it apart is there's no route. So you get to choose however you want to get to the next track. There's no set out route. That can be a good thing and a bad thing. Again, there's always pros and cons to these. Uh, Good thing is if you need to run slower roads, then you have that opportunity to. If you have a rear gear or something that you can't run that. If you have an overdrive and you want to cruise down the interstate, you can do that and get there faster. Which is good. From a photography side, though, it makes it very difficult to follow along with the racers because we don't have a necessary place that they have to be on the route that we can stop and take pictures. So those are just different things if you're following along to think about, that if you're just watching or if you're going to be part of the event, they look very different. Or if you're going to be doing what I do and do photography or get into this, those are things we have to look at. Getting into Rocky Mountain Race Week 1.0, 1.0 and 2.0 were different last year. It seems like they're going to be a little bit closer to the same this year coming in, so that's something to look at as well. But Rocky Mountain Race Week 1.0 was a great event. I loved going to it. It was my first year this last year of being able to go out that way and see it. You get to see the Rocky Mountains. Absolutely amazing. Beautiful, beautiful country. You have 5 days of racing, but you have an added 2 days of travel time, which makes it a little more relaxed because you have these really long drives, but you have a full day to do it. You get to enjoy some of the scenery a little bit more, which is a lot of fun, but it also adds 2 days to your expenses. So if you are going to race, that is something to take into consideration. And the area that it's in the plains and then out into the mountains of Colorado. You have elevation out there, so your car is going to run slower if you're used to having good dense air like we are. That's something to take into consideration. You might have to do different classes because the car might not run what it did at lower elevation. It's a really cool event. I really enjoyed it because it had a relaxing feel. They also do their racing of an evening, so you drive in the morning, race in the evening. Now I have two theories of looking at it. One, I kind of like racing of an evening because it kind of makes it a little laid back on the way. However, if something goes wrong and you've stayed at the track and you're driving that morning, you don't have as much time to fix it and still make your pass. Whereas if you do your racing of a morning, you race and then you drive. If you break down, you have all night to fix it to make sure you get to the track in time. So it cuts out some of that travel time on the days it's just 1 day travel time, which are 3 days of that. So you got to really be on top of your game to make sure that you're not going to break. And they are pretty long, hard drives, but beautiful country, and I highly recommend that event. I'm going to highly recommend all of them if you haven't noticed. Then we got Drag Week, which is the one that started everything. So if you're looking for the legacy side of these drag and drive events, you want to look at Drag Week because it was the first one to ever come out. It has that prestige of being what it is. It's a really cool event. Hot Rod does a good job with it, but they do move around a little bit more than some of the other drag and drives. So that is really cool to take into consideration as well. It's a little bit harder to get on some of those wait lists, but it's still hard to get on all of them. So you're gonna have to be on top of your game to get signed up if you're doing that. If you're gonna be participating, if you're just following along, it's gonna be one of those events that has that higher prestige. It is a really cool event. You're gonna have a lot of fast cars at it, just like Sick Week. Sick Week and Drag Week pretty much have the fastest fields in all of the events put together. And then we looked at Rocky Mountain Race Week 2.0, which I said this year is going to be a little bit different, but 2.0 was really cool because it was down in the Oklahoma and Texas area, a little bit hotter area, and I don't know if it was because I was riding in one of the race cars or not, but it had a little bit different feel because of the area. It had a little more interstate drives to it, which was okay, but it would have been really cool to see some of the backcountry and some of the two-lane highways more than just all interstate. We had 1 day of good back roads, but I think that's going to be changed because Rocky Mountain 1.0 and 2.0 are both going to be pretty much the same area, and that's the original 1.0 route for this next year. So that's going to kind of solve some of my qualms with 2.0, but it's still a great event. I would highly recommend it. I'm not trying to knock that one at all because 2.0 was a lot of fun to be out there, and it was cool for me to get to see some new tracks, and it worked out as a very good event. Some pretty decently long drives, which adds to the difficulty, and it was only a 5-day event rather than the 7-day of 1.0. So those are different things to take into consideration always. So those are all of the ones that I've been to. Now we're going to talk about some of the regional events that I haven't made to, but I might make it to some of them this year. Regional events are smaller in length. They only generally go 3 days. Some of them can be 2 days. 3 days are a little bit easier. They can be done on a weekend. So if you don't have that much time off of work and you want to go to one of these events, it's a way to get into Drag and Drive and not have to take a full week off and have a ton of traveling and such. And they're regional, so they're spread out all over the country, so you can find what you're looking for in a Drag and Drive event. So that's really, really fantastic. Definitely be looking at Drag and Drive Addiction at the website there. I'll have him linked down below. Mike Narks, he was on last week with us on our podcast style for the first one of those. Make sure you go check out his website. He has all the information you would ever need about Drag and Drive, about all the statistics and everything. He's done a really great job on putting that all together. So go make sure to check that out if you have any questions about where those events are, and definitely look into checking one of those out if you don't have the time off and you want to try one of the smaller events to get your feet wet and see what it's like. Because it is a lot harder on these race cars than you think it is to drive 1,000 miles. It is a lot harder. So just keep that in mind if you are looking to participate in one of these events. Now let's talk about new events. We have some new events for this year, and that will be Six Summer and Death Week. I am very, very excited to see both of those events. Six Summer is going to be right in my backyard, so it's up in the Midwest area. We're going to be seeing some of those guys that we're seeing at Drag Week, which has been in the Midwest, and then we're going to have Death Week out west in Las Vegas and California. I'm looking forward to that one as well. I never said that I wanted to go to California, but I am very excited for this event and for the back part of this year. We're going to have so many cool things coming out. But those two events are blazing new territory, which is going to be very cool. The Midwest we've seen before in the Midwest at some of these tracks with Drag Week. It would be really cool to see how Tom's interpretation of a Drag and Drive translates to one in the summer, and how it's up there around with some of the other big Drag and Drive events. And then Death Week is going to be all totally new. It's going to be later in the year, and it's really going to be the last major Drag and Drive of the year. So we'll see some people vying for that top 100. We'll see a lot of competition happening out there, and I'm hoping that it's a good time. It looks like it might be a little bit relaxed. I'm not sure exactly. I'm really excited to see how it unfolds and get more information on that as the year proceeds. Another thing to note, Midwest Drags has moved to the East Coast, up in Northeast, up by New York, Virginia, that area this year. So make sure you're looking on that if you are looking at going to one of these Drag and Drive events. That has been a change, so if you're in that area, you might look into that one because it is closer. Just depending on your area, it might depend on where you want to go. So location's big, and then obviously all the features of the different events. So recap is Sick Week, Midwest Drags, and Drag Week, and then Six Summer and Death Week, race of a morning, and then drive of an evening, whereas the Rocky Mountain Race Weeks are flip-flopped of that. Now to the ultimate question of which Drag and Drive event was my favorite last year, and this is really, really hard for me to say because I really enjoyed working with all of them. Helicopter. I know. Anticipation. Okay, helicopter's gone. My favorite, and I'll explain it, was Rocky Mountain Race Week 1.0. Why that was my favorite was because I love that territory. It was more about location for me and having the extra day, and for me it was just the experience I had at that event. I don't necessarily know that translates to that being the best event, because I don't necessarily think that it is the best event, but it was my favorite. So, of last year, it was my favorite because it felt I was at the end of a really long month of going through a lot of different events. It had some relaxing moments. I was out in some area that was just really peaceful. Got to go through the mountains, which I love seeing, the Rocky Mountains. And the sense of community and family that they had out there was really, really good. Obviously, it's not perfect. None of them are. They're all going to have their flaws. But keep that in mind wherever you're choosing. Make sure you get involved with Drag and Drive events. It's so much fun. And make sure that you keep tuned to watch this channel, because we're going to have a ton of content coming out for all the Drag and Drives that we're going to this next year. And it's going to be a hoot. So make sure you keep tuned. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you made it this far in the video, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and be looking for all of the more content coming out throughout this whole next year. Love you guys. Have a blessed day, and I'll talk to you guys next time.